Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, James.
And good morning, everybody. Hopefully you have all enjoyed some wonderful summer sunshine.
I have.
I know, it's been extra hot, hasn't it, Anne?
Yes.
Probably too hot. Not for you?
No, never.
Never. Brilliant. Well, hopefully you all agree and you've enjoyed the wonderful summer sunshine. Here we are, Anne.
Once more.
Are you happy to begin?
I am.
Brilliant.
Yes, I am.
Where would you like to start this morning?
It's quite a deep one, really, that I'm thinking of this morning.
Okay.
And I know we've had beautiful weather, but I've been listening to. I do listen to the news.
Right.
But more than listening to the news, I don't always listen to the news for the news. That sounds stupid, doesn't it? I don't listen to it. I try to listen to what's behind the news, if that makes sense. And it might not make sense to some people. But I always used to say to my students, don't listen to what people are saying, listen to what they're not saying.
Right, okay. That's interesting.
And that was the advice I always gave to my students. Listen to what they're not saying. And they used to look at me perplexed.
Right.
As, how can you do that? But it's a skill that you develop, or one develops.
Right.
And I'm looking at around the world at the moment,
Okay.
And I would imagine everybody listening to us at this moment are equally as concerned as I am about what is going on. And sometimes we have tragedies, don't we? We have tragedies in this world.
Yes.
And those tragedies are normally contained in one place. In my lifetime, this is. Most tragedies occur separately.
Right, okay.
Over the years. Now we have so many things occurring at one time, whether it's Gaza or Jerusalem, Iran, all different areas of the world have got problems. All the men, and it is mainly men, who have power, are all having their say as to how they feel about it or what they think should happen. My question is, do you think they even listen to themselves when they're talking? Or do you think they just talk? Do you think they actually listen to the words they're using and understand what they're saying?
Right.
And then follow with actions? Because I don't see anybody following. I hear words, but I don't see anybody following with actions.
In a political arena?
Yes.
Specifically?
Specifically, yes.
And you're asking myself?
Yeah.
No, I'm not laughing, yeah.
No, I'm laughing.
You're laughing, yeah.
Because I'm not answering it, I'm only asking it.
No, the reason I'm asking is I'm wondering whether you were saying it almost like a rhetorical statement, really. But no, as a direct question.
Absolutely, yes.
Right, okay. Well, that's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing.
It's interesting. Right, okay. So do I feel that politicians specifically do not listen to themselves because you see lots of things said and very little action?
Yes.
So what's done doesn't marry up with what's said?
No.
The difference?
No.
Have I understood that?
You have understood that, yes.
My initial feelings, I suppose, lean the way that you must be thinking, which is no. In a very short answer, no, I don't think very few people listen to themselves and take genuine stock and comprehension of what's being said by oneself. Because if they did, they would recognise that they say things that couldn't possibly be true. They also then say things that somebody else has said. They change their minds all of the time. They make promises that they never deliver. And that comes across, I suppose, at best, foolish and incompetent, and at worst, a pathological liar, psychopathic, bully. I don't know, use your own descriptors, adjectives, but concerning to say the least. It seems to me that in politics, it's a practical art, and generally, the more things go wrong or the more things that are questioned, the more they talk. So the more that it moves away from truth, abstractly for now, in terms of an abstract truth. So truth in sort of a general sense, the more talk there is. So there's more talk around, and often around, and this encapsulates and circulates media, all forms of media, new media. And I suppose the outer reaches of it find ourselves this morning here, Anne, sat across a table with a microphone between us, and you've asked me a question, and here we are talking. So there's a lot of talk around many geopolitical happenings and world events, and in your words, rightly, tragedies and atrocities, and things that deeply penetrate our human awareness, our collective consciousness, that propel us to think and talk and hopefully act. It seems to me that politicians operate on a paradigm which is understandable but not necessarily likeable, which is to convince the general populace that their point of view is your point of view and get you to agree with what they're saying in as much as that it's within your interests and your good to agree with them. So often it's a bit like sales in terms of an idea being a product, or a particular policy being a particular membership or product, or a particular course of action being a holiday, a car. I'm speaking in very superficial terms here, so take it with a pinch of salt. But it seems to me that they make their pitch and then they try and convince people around them and then the wider public, the nation that they represent, if we're talking about leaders, and then maybe on a global level if it's to do with global events, to try and convince everybody to go along with a certain course of actions. And that seems a little bit back to front, and that's saying something, rather than this is what we know, this is how we feel, and this is what we'd like to achieve.
And it would get sorted.
That's debatable, but I think it would have a much better chance of moving in the right direction. And I think that eventually things would reach new equilibrium, a new level of stasis where human beings and nation states are getting along better, a much more positive and productive and proactive and progressive world where people were more honest and more open and more transparent. And it may be very obvious to say, but there isn't much of that, particularly in world affairs, geopolitics, and particularly at the moment, the rising tensions that I'm sure everybody, all of you listening, have heard about and have your own deep, passionate thoughts about and concerns about. And they won't be the same as everybody else listening. Everybody will have different, sometimes vastly different, sometimes very similar, but people will see things slightly differently, as it should be. But there's very little transparency, there's very little honesty. And you're right, it's a lot of men talking.
Yes.
And not very pleasant men.
No.
And interesting men. I've never met them, so I'm making a judgment here from relative afar. And I'm also aware the irony that I am male, sat here talking now at quite some length, so I'm aware of that as well. So it's a difficult one to answer specifically, because I have an emotional because of the events that you have highlighted and others, countless others that are going on and have been going on for a long time now. It's more of an emotional response, a feeling, a hurt really inside that I'm doing my best to always articulate, and it always falls short.
I have two instances really that I'd like to talk about that have happened in my life as far as MPs are concerned. A few years ago, I was invited to the House of Commons for question time.
Right.
And there were 4 of us were invited, and we were taken to the offices first where they all work to watch them work, and then taken across to Westminster and to the question time where we sat and listened. And it was like, they were all like schoolboys.
Right.
To be honest. It was disgusting listening to them.
Okay. And
as we came out, we had been invited then to go on the terrace, to have lunch on the terrace.
Right, okay.
And then we went up Big Ben.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful, wonderful day, and it was a privilege to do it.
Yes.
But as we came out of, and the MP was Conservative, Right. As we came out of the question time, he had come up to escort us to where we were having lunch. And as we walked out, he said to me, what did you think, Anne? So I said, I think you're like a load of schoolboys, to be honest, and I would be ashamed if I actually acted the way you all did.
Yes.
So I said, but I do have a question for you. And he said, what's the question? So I said, is there any time, and I said, you've been an MP for a long time, is there any time where you all sit down and work, I'm talking about all parties, where you all sit down and you work for the greater good of man and this country? And he said, never. We are in competition. And I've never forgotten that.
Yes.
And I thought that was so sad. So that was the first one. And then I do write letters to MPs.
Yes.
About things that I am, do disconcert me. And I wrote one recently about the rights to die, your own rights to die.
Yes.
The bill that they're trying to pass now.
Yes, assisted dying.
Assisted dying.
Yes.
Because I feel very strongly about it.
Okay.
I feel very strongly that I should have the right to die if I wish to.
Right, okay.
That's me personally.
So you are in favour of the bill?
Absolutely, 100% I'm in favour of it.
Right, okay.
With my background as well, with nursing and many things I've done.
Yes.
Working with Samaritans, I do feel it very strongly.
Right, okay.
But that's only me, that's my feelings. So I wrote to him about this bill that is being passed.
This is your local MP?
My local MP. He was very good, he always replies.
Right.
And I said to him, I said I would like this bill to be passed. And I'll give him his due. He sent me a letter back saying his mother had MS.
Yes.
For many years. And she was obviously going to die of MS and she became quite disabled with it.
Right.
And the whole family looked after her and made sure she was comfortable.
Yes.
This is in his letter.
Yes.
And she died in the comfort of her home. And he said, the reason for this is I am a practising Catholic.
Right.
So I will never vote for the right to die.
Okay.
So it's another aspect of what I was saying before, really, and I admired him for saying it. And yes. I did write him a letter back saying, I admire you for sticking to your own views.
Right, okay.
But my other thing that I'm thinking about is, should our own views on personal things affect us when we're making decisions, if we're making decisions for a country? Well, that's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's a very difficult question. Wow, that's a brilliant question.
And I've thought about that strongly ever since he sent me the question. I've thought about it.
So this isn't the separation of church and state. This is the separation of self and state.
Yes.
Wow. That's interesting. Wow, it's difficult in a very enjoyable way.
Yes.
It's like an essay question.
It is, because none of us know how we would react ourselves. We all have our own opinions, don't we?
Yes.
But
is it possible to leave yourself aside? Can you honestly, not you personally, Anne, including you, but everybody listening, you being the great grand everybody, could you argue for something, support something that you didn't believe in? Because if we want our politicians to be integral and to act with honesty and decency, then I think it's very difficult to separate one's personal passions and beliefs and faith, because that's asking somebody to be disingenuous. And I hear everybody, pretty much everybody, but everybody, if they were to talk about it, always agreeing and always saying, I want them to be honest. I want them to be respectable. I want them to have a decency. And I don't think you can truly have that if you don't hold true to your own knowing. So I feel that it does come down to probably something that's less practical, more problematic, but true. which is we can't separate ourselves from country. Because if you love this country, you're able to love each other and love who we are and the values we share, even when we disagree. And we can't have that unless we hold to what we do hold in our hearts.
Like you said, though, a belief, you said, the question was, would I be able to put aside my belief to make a decision? I would always be able to put aside a belief. I could never put aside a knowing.
Yes.
See, those two words are completely different, aren't they? You believe something, I can say, or you can say to me, I believe this, Anne.
Yes.
And I can say, and go along with your belief. But if I have a knowing, there's no way I'd go along with your belief because it's my knowing. So
Yes.
what's the difference between a knowing and a belief? There is a difference.
There is, from what you're saying, and I'm sure everybody has their own definitions. It's semantics, really. But I suppose a belief, based on what you're saying, and for limited purposes, so let's not pin ourselves down forever to it, but it could be said this morning that a belief is a current position that we hold with a level of certainty.
Yes.
But it's open to change. So we know that, so that when we believe something, we know that it's certain, and we know that we're fully behind it, but we're aware that a belief could change, and there's gaps in our knowledge in terms of a certainty. So it's high certainty, but I sense you're saying knowing, in terms of your understanding, is absolutely ironclad certain.
Absolutely.
And that it's immovable.
It is immovable, and that goes back to the first question about the people in power, who, when I said to you, do they question themselves? Do they question themselves?
Yes.
It's because they're not questioning themselves whether they have a knowing or a belief.
Absolutely.
They're going along with what has been told in policy.
Yes. And there's obviously, it's a good point, Annie. In fact, it's a brilliant point as a general area.
Yes.
And it's very deep. We've gone very philosophical, very deep. But also very relevant with what's going on in the world. Absolutely relevant. If I was to say to you all listening this morning, if you have children, grandchildren, husband or wife, do you love your children? Do you love your grandchildren? The answer would be yes. I know that it wouldn't necessarily be yes in every single moment forever. But let's just
Depends
say...
what they're doing.
Let's just say in terms of, in the heart of hearts, yes. And if I was to say, and if somebody was to say, oh, so do you believe that you do? Your response would be, no, I know that I do. So we know there's a difference. It's very difficult to define, but we know when we know something, we know it.
Absolutely.
And if I was to say to you, Anne, or to you all listening this morning, and I wouldn't, of course I wouldn't, but if I was to say hypothetically, and for the sake of argument, I don't believe that you love your children, or I don't believe that you love your dog, or I don't believe that you love your wife, whoever it might be, or cat or whatever, something that you really, really love. You wouldn't bat one eyelid whether somebody else doubted your love, because it's not dependent on whether other people agree with you or not. That's the level of knowing, or at least a way of feeling the level of knowing that you are alluding to. Whereas a belief can be challenged and somebody else will push back, and it becomes a game of an argument, really, a point being made, and beliefs that can be swayed, and directions that can be taken, and U-turns and reverses and all of this type of stuff, not just political but in life. So we do have awareness of it. We all have a knowing of it. And when we know, we know.
Yes.
And when we know something, when somebody else doubts it, it doesn't change our knowing.
No.
So everybody in the world, to all of you listening, could say, we don't believe that you love your children. We don't believe you love your grandchildren. And if everybody in the world said it, you wouldn't change your knowing. No. You know that you know. You know that that adorable little child, and sometimes not so adorable little child, you have a genuine love which is undefinable, undescribable, and completely unprovable, but you know it. It's not a belief, you know it. So that's the level of certainty I feel you're talking about, as opposed to a very firmly held belief, a conviction in thought and action, but it's not backed up with absolute knowing. Have I got that not right, but in terms of in the right area.
As an example of what is going on now, I mean, I think lots of people who are listening to us know that we do stands for peace.
Yes.
And we're doing one in Whitby in August.
Yes.
Which we've done each year. So we're going to Whitby to know the stand for peace.
Yeah, so yes, that's correct.
Now, just as an example of we stand for peace. Now, I am very, very firm about this. So if somebody came to me and said to me, what would you do, Anne? How would you think? You know, you're standing, and people do say it, you're standing there for peace. What do you think you're doing? Why are you standing there? Is it going to make any difference?
Right, okay.
So, I don't know, is the answer, really. I don't know. But what my answer would be is that I am standing here and I've made a difference because you've just asked me why I'm here. So I've made one difference. So if you go and tell somebody else, I've made two. That's two people that are questioning themselves about it. But I said, well, but what would you do? And I only have one answer ever about this piece. And my answer would always be the same, is that every single person or human being never, ever pick up a weapon of destruction ever again.
Yes.
No single human being ever make one. And all those that we've already got, destroy them. Then there could never be a war.
That's
true.
It
might be a war of words, but that's not going to hurt anybody. But and for me, the stopping of, but that is this. What I'm trying to explain is, that's not my belief. That's my knowing, and nobody who speaks to me will ever be able to change me from that knowing. And that's what politicians don't do. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't go with their own knowing.
Yes. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Or I feel I do, generally, and I'm sure everybody listening this morning will feel in their own way. It's such an emotive, evocative subject, really, and it's so current. And it stirs passions, doesn't it? It certainly does for myself. I feel you're touching, if our goal as a group of volunteers, as a group of a community group, really, is to get a centre in the short, medium term.
Yes.
You know, a big marker point on the horizon, and hopefully very soon, you've touched upon there as a goal, is to achieve genuine peace and the prospect of war being ended.
Yes.
And I mean genuinely, not just whimsically and wishfully. I mean actually to see it through. One thing I will say that I know in response to what you've said, and I agree with the stated outcome, the objective of getting to a place where all weapons of mass destruction, all cataclysmic weaponry, all destructive measures that human beings are deliberately creating to hurt and harm from all sides upon the earth are removed and gone. Yes. And the possibility of that level of war is removed. Totally, and I'm talking about totally, which I agree with you. One thing I do know, certainly know, is it's going to require an enormous amount of courage to achieve that, and potentially a lot of force as well. So to achieve peace, it may not come peacefully. I hope it does, and that's my intention from the start. But I'm very much aware that to achieve that level of peace, to achieve that total, global, new world, it may require an enormous amount of force, and it may not come about peacefully, which is ironic, isn't it? And a little bit sad, to be honest with you. And that's not my goal, and I don't wish for that. But it doesn't mean that I'm prepared to back down if it gets to that. No,
nobody should back down. And words can be very powerful. You know, words can. If somebody has the capacity to have the right words, it would never get to that, because
it already has got to that.
I know it's got to that.
We've got children being blown up now. We've got hospitals being blown up now.
Absolutely.
It's not going to get to it.
No, it's not.
It's got to it. The world has already dropped 2 atomic bombs.
Yes.
And now we're on the brink of total cataclysmic all-out war. So I do think it's important not to talk about what's going. It's happened.
No, it's happening.
And we're in the throes of it, accelerating
of it.
unbelievably quickly.
Yes.
And I know you're aware of it.
Yes.
But the horse is bolted.
What I'm saying is, we all, each and every one of us on this planet have got to start opening our mouths and saying, stop.
Yes.
Because we can all, as one, just say no and stand and say no more.
Good point, well made again, and
We don't
and
have to be puppets.
To everybody that is cynical, it's easy to be cynical.
Yes.
It's harder to stand for something because you can and do look foolish in the eyes of some, and we could be wrong, and you could be naive, and it's easy to be cynical and certain.
I'm not. My knowing I'm not.
And you know that to be true, yeah. And I'm not going to argue, at least not this morning anyway. Absolutely not. And it's very easy to be cynical and to have this sort of veneer, this front of certainty, to be able to knock something down because it makes you feel perturbed in some way. To anybody that says, well, what does it do? I say this to the whole of humanity. How about you stand with us for 5 minutes and find out? And then if one person does it, 2 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people, 1 million people, 10 million people, 100 million people, a billion people, everybody. Just for 5 minutes.
5 minutes at one time.
At one time, and let's find out.
I don't feel it.
And even if they don't, for that 5 minutes, the whole earth has stopped and stood together. So in a sense, it's a surefire thing if everybody fully commits to it.
Yes.
A unified, fully committed, together.
Yes.
Everybody. So, as naive as it might sound, and as unrealistic as it might seem, and implausible and impossible as it probably is, we, and this includes anybody that would like to be a part of it, are here to bring peace to this earth. And we're not going to stop until we achieve it, until every single child on this earth is safe. And safe, period. Not just safe for a time, safe relatively forever. To end all war, and the war on mind as well, and all that is destructive, wicked, malevolent and evil from this earth forever. And all that is good and true to rise and truly inherit this earth. So...
And it's not just war, is it? That includes the abuse of children, the sex trafficking, everything.
Absolutely, everything.
You know, we have to make sure that all this warmongering is not masking all the other things that are going on as well.
Absolutely. And it's so atrocious and so scary and so perturbing. It's difficult to think about, but it's so important we face.
Yes.
And there are so many good people in this world, and I don't want any of you to lose heart, because sometimes I can feel that as well.
Yeah.
And that's partly why we do the community events as well, to show in colour and in life and in music and in fancy dress and together with smiles, full force. Let's show this world what goodness can be together. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it's so important that we face what's going on, because then we can change it, because all it needs is for the good to rise.
Yes.
And there are so many good people in this world, so many good people in this world.
I must say, I think to the people now, is that you've no idea how much pleasure we get from our events.
I know, it's a privilege.
I know
really
we're talking
is a
about
privilege.
we're doing it for the community, but to be honest, we get so much pleasure from dressing up ourselves.
Yes.
That it's wonderful.
Fancy dress, that is.
Fancy dress, yeah.
It's
dress,
good old-fashioned family fun.
Yes.
It really is. And you're right, it's an absolute privilege and an honour to be able to partake and share the time with so many wonderful people. And there's so many volunteers that we all come together and give so much. And if you'd like to be involved, come along and get involved.
Yes.
So Saturday the 12th of July, our summer fun day, circus, carnival themed. It really is going to be brilliant. And if you'd like to come, you can get your tickets on www.eventbrite.com, and there'll be more information on stridefortruth.com. And we'd love to see you there. We really, really would.
It's Sale West Community Centre.
Sale West Community Centre, you're right. 2:00 start. We'll get there in the end, Dan.
We will,
Brilliant.
yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. So let's do this. Yes.
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay.
We will.
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay.
Brilliant. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, everybody. And we look forward to being with you and speaking with you again next week, next Sunday.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.